This is Hannibal back here from the Hannibal TV on YouTube with my weekly review of only the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's Wrestling Observer newsletter. So let's jump right into it. Survivor Series coming up this weekend in Vancouver. It's not sold out yet. And the main reason for that is because they're charging exorbitant amounts of money for tickets. The interesting thing is there's no other dates announced yet for Canada until the March 1st Elimination Chamber show at the Rogers Center, former Skydome, where they had WrestleMania there in 1990 and 2002. They're advertising it as John Cena's final wrestling event ever in Toronto. I don't know how much they're going to charge for tickets. If they have The Rock there, it will certainly help draw. I mean, John Cena's final match in Toronto, I guess if they're running Canada that infrequently and only running the very big cities like Vancouver and Toronto, Montreal are the three biggest cities. There's nothing announced for Montreal yet. I assume they'll go to Montreal with Cena. But I mean, they haven't announced where the Raw will be after Elimination Chamber, or if the SmackDown is going to be there the night before or not. But I don't know. That's a massive arena to fill up for Elimination Chamber and WWE. I mean, it could get hot again when it's Netflix, but they're having a house show at Madison Square Garden, traditionally their biggest house show of the year, in less than a month, and they only have just over 6,000 tickets sold. And they also have a house show the day after in Pittsburgh with under 4,000 tickets sold. Phoenix, a city, well, I'm definitely going to live in Arizona one day. But Phoenix, where they've had like over 10,000 people lately, I mean, they went there with The Rock and stuff. There's a SmackDown coming up there in January, just over a month away, has under 4,000 tickets sold, and that's a massive city. Cody Rhodes was on The Tonight Show last night. He said he wants to call this era the record era of WWE, and he considers himself the quarterback. There's no doubt he's been a solid performer for them. I don't get it. He did a lot of sucking up to Triple H, The Rock, and Nick Khan in this Tonight Show thing. And to me, he's like, he has a good look, but to me, he's like the perfect corporate champion. I would, if I had a company, I'd use him and stuff, but he's like just the perfect corporate guy. The opposite of what Steve Austin presented. And definitely not with the charisma of a Hulk Hogan or that. Basically, I just don't think he's at his most popular that he is now. And I mean, I don't think Kevin Owens is going to beat him on Saturday Night Main Events. I don't think anyone is going to beat him until it's either The Rock or Roman Reigns. So to me, it's very flat. You can say it's record-breaking because there's very few house shows. People are traveling more to events. And you're making more money than ever because tickets are more expensive than ever. But to me, for the common man, your dad, Cody, was all about the common man. Could the common man even afford WWE tickets these days at the prices that they're at? Because my parents made me pay for wrestling tickets with my allowance, and I could never afford them. I mean, at the height of the Attitude Era, when WWE would tape, they taped a Raw in Ottawa the night after the Survivor Series, which wasn't the height of it. But the night after the Survivor Series, my second row tickets for Raw were $30. We're not even, like, it's not that long ago, but ticket prices have just gone incredibly higher. My Survivor Series ticket was $27. I remember that well. I wasn't on the floor for that. I was on the second level, but I don't think you could even get a nosebleed ticket to a pay-per-view these days. Anyways, they're doing great financially. I just think a lot of this record breaking has to do with more people are traveling to the big shows. There's not 3 house shows a week. I mean, they're doing house shows Christmas week, and they're doing some in foreign places where they're not used to getting house shows, but like there's no house shows anymore. They used to come to my hometown of Ottawa like 4 times a year. I understand the business is different, but like on a per capita basis, less people care about wrestling. And I could not even stand 2 minutes of this Cody Rhodes interview. And I don't mean to go on a tirade of that. He's too corporate for a guy like me. Like he's not. I don't like corporate people like that. It's just a turn off. SmackDown had a good crowd in Milwaukee, November 15th. Always a great wrestling city, 10,690, including comps. SmackDown in Salt Lake City had 8,394, a little less. AEW, its perception is the weakest it's been in history right now, according to Dave Meltzer. They had an event last weekend in Newark, New Jersey, where I got a lot of fans, and I love New Jersey. The show went 5 hours and 20 minutes. So, by the way, anyone that just came to see the Costco guys, let's really burn them out of wrestling so they don't even want to stay the whole show. Let's make it 5 hours and 20 minutes long. I mean, Tony Atlas said it best. The crowd really doesn't want to be there more than 3 hours. Once 3 hours hits, other than the super fans, your casual fans just want to start going, or if someone like gave you a ticket, to keep someone's attention for over 5 hours. I mean, that's just torture. And it makes them leave with a bad taste in their mouth. Then you got to fly all these people in. And I know they pay for hotels and stuff. It just puts your costs up to have that many matches, but do whatever you want. To me, if somebody tells me you got free tickets to a wrestling show, but it's 5.5 hours, I would just be like, oh God, that sounds like torture. And I'm still a wrestling fan. I mean, I watched the Mr. McMahon documentary recently and enjoyed it overall. I watched the Ric Flair 30 for 30 documentary. Because I just got Netflix. I tried to watch Al Snow's Wrestlers OVW thing. I have to admit, I didn't like it. I lasted about 5 or 6 minutes into the first episode. But I'm still a fan. I just, as Brad Anderson, Gene Anderson's son, said in a recent interview with Jack Kilby, wrestling today is just not what wrestling was in the 80s and 90s and 70s. It's something totally different. It changed somewhere along the lines. And yeah, we got Orange Cassidy now, who, by the way, I guess he talks now. But like, for a guy like me, good for him, for the people that like him and his success. But like, it's absolute torture watching something like that. Give me an Ultimate Warrior squash match or a Goldberg squash match. I'll watch it 3 or 4 times rather than watching one Orange Cassidy match. So AJ Andrew Buffalo Jr., 48, was an independent wrestler from 1999 to 2003. He has since started this Costco guys deal with his 2 overweight children who were in his corner and involved in the finish of the match against QT Marshall, this Full Gear event. The 12-year-old kid gave Marshall a spear to go into the finish. Here's the one thing, though, that I have to disagree with. For everyone saying, thank you, Thomas John Taylor, from Allentown, Pennsylvania. That is quite a ladies' man, by the way. But anyways, let me just say, for these Costco guys, which have infuriated all the old school fans, for everyone that keeps saying, oh, this has been his lifelong dream, he was an independent wrestler from 1999 to 2003. How much of a dream could it really have been? He hasn't been an independent wrestler for 21 years. how dedicated are you if you do it for a few years then quit? I mean, to me, that's nothing. I mean, I've been and I know a lot of people like me. I've been wrestling since 2001. And I still had a match even though I was injured and shouldn't have come back this year in 2024. And the only time off I've really had is for health issues, which I've had some over the years. But like, don't try and tell me it was your lifelong dream when you wrestled for a few years and quit. The Costco kid with the spear was the biggest joke of 2024. It's going to turn off more fans than it's going to get you. Apparently, they're doing 3 shows at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York for AEW. It holds 2,000, but it's only going to be set up for about 1,300 fans. None of the 3 shows are sold out. They're starting to book smaller arenas. They're stopping taping Collision on live. It will no longer be live. Might be here and there, but doesn't look like there's any Collision shows booked on Saturdays in the near future. There's a lot of double tapings of Dynamite and Collision on the same days. And they're doing Collision after Dynamite on some days. Their stadium show in Australia has been canceled. Ticket holders will have their tickets switched to the smaller arena in the same city. That is apparently an arena so old that it was considered an old and decrepit arena back in 2001 when WCW ran it. But it's better than being in an empty stadium. There was a whole issue with Ricky Starks wrestling for AEW over the weekend. And I guess he was supposed to have 3 more appearances, but he did an interview saying AEW not using him for the past 8 months, even though he's under contract, has been quote unquote a mind F you know what. I'm not going to say it because of YouTube's heavy monetization guidelines that they have now. On top of those comments that Starks made about AEW biting the hand that feeds him, GCW star Effie said the truth. AEW has no buzz, no draws, and are not a profitable company. They're $40 million in deficit right now. True. That is true. So I guess this pissed off Tony Khan, and he canceled Ricky Starks that had been approved 3 dates for GCW. But now we're seeing AEW is seeing GCW as competition. And by the way, AEW doing this actually just brought more attention to GCW's show at the Hammerstein Ballroom in January, which has 681 tickets sold right now in a place that can hold about 2,000. But that's great for GCW that doesn't have a international TV deal. But I think Tony Khan made a mistake here taking Starks off, because I really don't know how much he's been off TV so long. Is it really going to mean all that much whether he's on the show or not? But taking him off the show just brought a hell of a lot of attention to GCW. And again, Ricky Starks, I mean, I don't know what kind of contract he expects to get in WWE when they pretty much know at this point AEW, whenever his contract extends, probably aren't going to offer him as much money as he's making now, where apparently the average pay in AEW is somewhere around 300 grand. I just hope Ricky Starks appreciates when he's biting the hand that feeds him, like when he's making those comments, that it's a mind F not being used. I get it, but you're getting paid hundreds of $1,000s to do nothing right now. On the independent scene, if you're just wrestling for GCW, I don't think you're going to be making that much. Their owner even said that they don't have anyone even under contract. And by the way, the owner, and I agree with the owner, and I'll admire this Brett Lauderdale owner for saying this, he's not insisting on Effie apologizing for the comments he said about Tony Khan. I mean, if this Effie guy is not under contract and he's basically saying the truth, the company hasn't been profitable yet, and it has no buzz. Why should he apologize? So I commend Brett Lauderdale for not forcing the talent to apologize. Meltzer points out that Khan probably will not allow GCW to use AEW talent going forward. I can't see them telling Jon Moxley no if he wants to wrestle somewhere, because Jon Moxley seems to pretty much be able to do whatever the hell he wants. Matt and Jeff Hardy apparently re-signed with TNA, or signed with TNA. I guess they were free agents. I guess WWE must not have been that. I mean, Matt Hardy or Jeff Hardy, I know he's got a lot of issues because of his criminal past, can't travel. So that becomes a pain for companies that want to push you. And I guess they're getting older. I know Matt they weren't used very well in AEW, and I guess I would assume that why they'd be re-signing with TNA, that I don't know if anyone makes $100,000 a year in TNA. I really don't. I'll be shocked if anyone does. I guess it would just be because they either want to they've either made their money where they don't care and they just want to be somewhere where they're going to be used better, or they just didn't have other options. I like both of those guys, particularly Matt. I had a few interactions with him. Seems like a great guy. As far as Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, they reported over 72,000 fans at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, where I've been once. Meltzer is saying the actual number, according to Meltzer's sources, is 59,666 for an 18,117,702 gate. Apparently, in the first 24 hours of it being on Netflix, 73 million people watched it in the US, and 125 million watched it worldwide. So whatever, if you expected like George Chuvalo against Muhammad Ali with 58-year-old Mike Tyson and 27 or 28-year-old Jake Paul, you're living in a fantasy world. But it's impressive that this show made so much. I never expected this to be anything more than what it was. So it doesn't. The only thing is, I'm really impressed with how successful it was. Do I think any boxing match anytime soon is going to do those numbers? No, because most people that watch it, even casual people, didn't like it. I did hear that there's a sheik in Saudi Arabia that's willing to spend $700 million on a 1 3-minute round fight where Tyson tries his hardest to knock out Jake Paul. MMA sites are reporting this. I guess they have so much money in Saudi Arabia they can afford that. Well, Jeff, Jake is a very rich joke. I actually watched the Jake Paul documentary on Netflix. He's a great heel. I'll give him that, and he's great at making money. He's lived quite a life. Do I care to watch his boxing? No, but I have nothing against him. I think we need heels like that in wrestling that people genuinely hate, because we don't really have that anymore. Name me one. Someone name me a heel in the comments that people genuinely hate. They don't exist. WWE had the worst gimmicks around the time Jim Cornette was booking in the mid-90s. Yeah, you had Freddie Joe Floyd, you had Who, you had The Goon, you had Alex Porto, and you had Techno Team 2000. Oh my God, was it ever bad? I mean, people bash Vince Russo. At least he turned it around for the Attitude Era. He's had ups and downs in his bookings too, but it was horrible. And people will knock WCW in the early 90s. I would say WCW was better than WWE by far at the time, that I think it was Cornette and Pritchard as the main assistants to Vince. But yeah. Robert, I agree. Cody is no Dusty. One thing I will say for Cody, though, he did say that Dusty couldn't win the title from superstar Billy Graham, and he won the title. I mean, the title is way different then than it is now, but thanks for plugging one of my mentors, Billy Graham. May you rest in peace. But to listen to him I mean, he's just the definition of a corporate wrestler. Perfect for the corporate era of WWE. And I'm not saying that's bad. It's working for them. TKO stock is like $137 right now per share, which is crazy. Dominic, he's liked by a lot of people, though. But yeah, he might be the one with the most legit heat. I'll agree with you on that. But he has his fans. Yeah, I mean, I think the best era in boxing of that I can remember is when Tyson was on his rise, and of course, I was a fan of Tommy Morrison and that great fight between him and George Foreman. When George Foreman, I think at 45 and 46, remember he made the comeback in his 40s, actually became world champion. I would say the late 80s, early 90s era of boxing. I mean, as great as Tyson Fury is, I mean, he's just, and I know he's made more money, but like I don't see Tyson Fury as like his household name as the boxers from the late 80s, early 90s were, for whatever reason. When is Omega coming back to AEW? He's wrestling in New Japan. Tony Khan has sent him to New Japan. So even though he's an AEW contracted guy, I mean, he prioritizes other companies. He even said in this, and I forgot to mention this earlier, in 2025, they want to do a show at Arena Mexico with CMLL, which you can't do an interview without talking about CMLL, which just turns off regular fans because we don't care about CMLL. And that he wants to increase the international footprint of AEW. Why not try before? Remember, here's a great example, and nobody can argue this on me. Remember, even Ric Flair said it. Everyone said it. Jim Crockett Promotions, when one of its biggest mistakes was trying to expand, when they should have just held down the fort. Why AEW when it's losing the war in the States? Why don't they just go to their stronghold towns and like try and hold them down? Don't try and expand. It's not going to end well. Try and focus on rebuilding your strongholds. Don't try and go to new places. Look how bad a flop Australia was. Marvin Hagler was a lot better. That was before my time. Dusan here. You thought I was gonna love the Rizzler. I would like to beat up. You know what? I miss the days where you had to actually get stretched to get into wrestling or show some sort of toughness. When I was in Stampede Wrestling, the veterans beat on me in the dungeon before I earned their respect, and I had to kind of prove myself. Now anyone can be a wrestler, and again, wrestling is not anywhere near what it used to be. And having 11-year-old kids, I'm sorry, double-A grown men, that just makes me want to puke. At least when Ric Flair's son Reed double-legged Eric Bischoff in WCW, that didn't end a match. That was just a promo gimmick, and Reed was a legitimate amateur champion, and Bischoff was not an actual wrestler. To have this fat, obese kid double-leg someone that's supposed to be an actual wrestler that's a grown man, I'm sorry. I do not approve of that. Well, I think Jim Crockett did not do a good job with UWF. Jeff, thank you for that. If there's one talent I have, it's my ability to take punishment. Today, being a wrestling fan is tough these days. You know, I was talking about with Jack Kilby yesterday. I don't think there could ever be a wrestling territory again, but if there was, there needs to be a company. There's no company that exists right now that's like ECW was, for all the misfits and like for all the tough guys or the people that are too controversial, like me, to get into. I would have fit in great in ECW, but like they'll never use me because I'm not corporate in any of the big companies. But there's lots of people like me. I like to have a company like that where it's like all the outcasts and it actually shows a different product. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but that's what I would like to see, whether I was involved in it or not. Just like a company that's totally different, like ECW was totally different, and it was more gritty and more realistic and more cool. Because I don't think really. I mean, when the Rock is cool, but I don't think there's anything cool about AEW right now. I really don't. There's elements of WWE that are. Yeah, the Costco guys, they need to stop eating the Costco hot dogs. Those things are good. Jeff, GNW could do it, but I'm not sure I got the passion. I hope Jack does, but I don't have the crap like this just takes away the passion of wrestling for me. Although speaking of ECW and the ECW arena, I am going to try and get a match on the May 3rd Tri-State Wrestling Alliance one and done event at the ECW arena in Philadelphia. I am going to be there for sure. I'm going to be on that. I'm going to be at the event doing interviews and stuff. But I'd like to check the ECW arena match off my bucket list. So we'll see in the coming months. I am supposed to interview the guy running it soon, Joel Goodhart. Have a great weekend.